Build to rent. Are institutional buyers denying Americans the opportunity to buy homes? Let's dig into it. I'm Jay Knight, and this is Build Baby Build. Hey there. Joining us today is Jay Byce, president of ResiBuilt. And ResiBuilt is a buyer of neighborhoods, homes and neighborhoods, and builders, developers of homes and neighborhoods for the express purpose of renting to people who'd like to rent homes. Jay, can you tell us about yourself, how you got in the industry, and how you got in this end of the industry?
Sure. Yeah. So, born and raised here in Atlanta. Grew up a Georgia Bulldog fan. Went to the great university in Athens. Started my career as a banker, actually. And after 5 years of learning banking and how money works, started my own land development company. That was back in 2001. We put about 1,200 lots on the ground before the crash in 2008. Had a small home building company as well. And then I pivoted, when home building was a complete disaster, pivoted into private equity. So in 2009, I opened up Colony Capital's private equity office here in Atlanta. We were doing distressed debt at the time. Housing values were still falling. And in 2011, the founder of Colony suggested that we try to start buying foreclosed homes at the monthly foreclosure auction, not just in Atlanta, but across the country. And so we took a deep dive into, how feasible is that really? Again, prices were still falling every single month. Housing values are going down, more people in distress than the month before. In Atlanta, there were 15,000 homes every month coming to foreclosure auctions, right? And that was a real stress on the entire market. Lot values went to zero. I can tell you that because I own some.
Yeah, me too.
And so what we decided to do is start, buying what we could buy at the foreclosure auction. We would drive them, but largely sight unseen on the inside, renovate those homes, and then lease those homes, back into the market.
Who owned them? Was that Colony?
It was Colony at the time. And they spent about $3.5 billion, right? So not just Atlanta, but we bought about 20,000 homes in 18 months across the country. So, I handled Atlanta and Florida, Texas, and the Carolinas. And, buying is only one part of that equation, right? They renovated all of these homes, 40,000 plus homes.
Wow.
In total over my career. I've overseen the purchase and renovation. So that's an improvement to the housing stock. Many of these homes just simply could not have been renovated, through a normal sale. Jay, I don't know if, how much you know about mortgages, but, if a home doesn't meet certain minimum standards, a new buyer can't get a mortgage.
Right.
Right. So, and most buyers under 300,000 simply don't have the funds to put in $50,000 worth of upgrades, bringing it up to current day standards.
Sure.
So, not only did we catch the falling knife in housing values, but we invested a lot of money to make these homes and neighborhoods better. People often forget, back in 2010, neighborhoods around here were starting to look a lot like Detroit.
Yeah.
Right. And, there was a lot of talk about what is the city going to be? Like, can we recover from this?
Right.
Well, now, 15 years later, we know that we did recover from this. And the institutional buyers had a big piece in that. They stabilized the market. They stabilized home values. And they put a lot of money into renovating these homes.
Right.
So between Colony and then two other large institutional buyers, that's probably fanned out to 6 or 7 large institutional buyers now. They own about, call it 400,000 to 500,000 homes across the entire country.
Right.
400 to 500,000 homes seems like a big number. But then when you compare it to the entire housing stock in the US,
Right.
it is completely and utterly insignificant. And so there's a lot of press today saying that they're at fault for the rising prices that we're seeing now, or the unaffordability that we're seeing now. All that is a good headline. It's a nice headline on the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but it holds no real truth whatsoever.
Okay. So when you were doing all that, and you may not have the top of your head, and you probably don't, but do you know what the average age of the home was you were buying in that time frame around 2010?
I do, yeah. So we were targeting homes from 1979 to current. Reason 1979 is that's the lead-based paint change, right?
Gotcha.
So we didn't. Other groups got even older assets, but we mainly were 1980 to 2010. Average home was right around 1990.
Okay. So that was happening. That's still Colony.
Mm-hmm.
At what point does it become ResiBuilt, or is
Yep.
that another entity altogether?
Another entity altogether. So while I was at Colony, I started looking around. I said, wow, the housing market is certainly distressed, but what's even distressed worse than that is land development.
Right.
If you remember famously,
No A&D, and there's not really been any A&D since.
that's correct,
Mhm.
right? So in 2005, just to give you your listeners an example, in 2005, we put about 75,000 homes on the ground in just Atlanta.
When you
75,000
say
homes.
we, that's
The city itself,
right.
right?
So
All
we
home
were all
builders.
building to sell.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was, 75,000 homes. And at the time,
And it's a
Atlanta,
market that needs 35,000.
well, at the time,
35
I
to
needed
40.
75,000, right? Because we were adding 80,000 jobs a year, right? So the job
Right.
market is also cooled here, but we were adding about the same number of homes as we were adding jobs. So it seemed to make sense. In retrospect, that was really inflated because of the poor lending standards of the early 2000s.
So that was subprime mortgages.
Subprime mortgages. In retrospect, again, people were getting loans or buying homes that they just shouldn't have been buying.
Mhm.
Like it was
And
poor
ARMs,
financial.
ARMs that were blowing up and that type thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so roll that forward. That went, our demand for new homes went to zero. Essentially,
Right.
I think the low point was about 1,500 home sales.
I don't remember. I was
in Atlanta.
a part of it. I was trying not to read the headlines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So famously, we had something absurd like 70 years of lot inventory.
Right.
Right. That wasn't real because we knew eventually it was going to return, but we were putting enough lots on the ground. We had about 180,000 lots that were fully developed at the peak.
Right.
And we were building 75,000 homes. That actually is kind of equilibrium. It's about what you need. But then, after 2008, it became severely distressed.
Right.
Right. And so we started looking at neighborhoods that we call it mothballed, where the builder just can't move forward anymore, buying those lots, finishing out neighborhoods with new homes, and then renting those.
Who was building them? Was it
So
Colony
that was
still?
still Colony. I also was head of investments for another REIT that went public, American Residential Properties. We did that there as well. And so but that's when we started adding homes to the total inventory. And what we figured out was people would pay a premium to live in a new home. Well, that's no surprise, right? Like
Right.
you'll pay a
Pay a
premium.
premium.
to
You're
go buy
talking.
one.
You're talking pay a premium rent.
Rent. You'll pay a premium rent to go buy a new home rather than one that has been renovated. And that's really what got me thinking, like, okay, what if we can make this a true business model, right? And create entire communities that are dedicated to the renter. They want very similar things to homeowners. but they're not really being served in any way, shape, or form outside of the traditional multifamily, model,
Apartment.
if you will.
Yeah.
So in 2018, I started ResiBuilt with two partners. Um, and this is a very interesting beginning story. I know I'm talking a lot here, but
Hey, we got time.
so when we started, the first thing we did is we went out and bought 300 scattered lots. Now, what is a scattered lot? That means, they're leftovers, if you will. So the 5 last lots
So by
in this community.
2018, the market had recovered
Yep.
and we're all selling a lot of houses. And now you're doing the scattered lot.
Correct. All right. So the reason that we initially bought 300 scattered lots is because building a home building company is very difficult,
Right.
especially if you're waiting for land developers to give you the lots, right? So we said, all right, let's build the home building company while we develop our first neighborhoods, do that simultaneously, and let's experiment. Let's do something. This is an interesting time because we know that we can rent them and then sell them to institutional investors, or we can just sell them directly to homeowners.
Right.
So all 300 of those homes we offered for rent or for sale. We gave the consumer a choice. And we learned two things. Almost all of our inbound calls were inquiring about purchasing the home. When we taught them that they did not have to put a big down payment and get a 30-year loan, but you could rather lease it, 92% of them chose leasing.
Really?
Yeah. So what we figured out through this experiment was that the ownership component of the home was a bit irrelevant. It was the living in the home that people were more interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll hear me throughout this podcast draw a lot of correlations to the car business. But this is exactly like a car lease, right? Nobody cares how you finance your vehicle.
They just want to drive the car.
They just want to drive the car.
Right.
And so I think it was created in the early 80s when leasing really was rolled out for cars, the older generation was like, "Oh, who would ever lease a car? That is a terrible financial, decision." Well, look at it now. It's about 50% of the market.
Really?
And yeah. And it doesn't matter. The car is the same. There's no difference in the car. It's just a financing option on whether you're buying it or leasing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't hurt the world. In fact, it's helped the car companies and probably improved affordability overall, in the car industry because more people have access to using the car, to having a vehicle. So roll that forward a little bit. When we started actually having our developments complete, we call them dedicated rental communities. At this point, we've done over 50 communities in Atlanta, Central Florida, so Tampa, Orlando, Space Coast, and then the Carolinas and Charlotte and Greenville. So 50 communities. Basically, we lease them as soon as we build them. We have very little inventory. And one of the great advantages we have is we're not waiting for home buyers,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a lot easier for someone to lease a home and start using it than it is to go through the mortgage process and buy the home. So where a successful for sale community goes at 3 to 4 units a month, we're 10 to 15.
Mm-hmm.
So we are, 3 to 5 times.
You're leasing as fast as it can be delivered.
That's correct. And, even in today's market. And so we are actually helping the affordability issue because we're adding more supply than for sale home builders can dream of. We're doing it, 3 to 5 times faster than they can.
Well, this isn't a debate, and you tripped up across a few things there because you and I, we're both named Jay. We're both in the industry. It's the elephant in the room. We're both extraordinarily handsome men, And
I'll come back anytime.
yeah, and
Same.
so I don't know if there's room for both of us in the industry. I hope there is.
Absolutely.
Or we can bring out the octagon, whatever we have to do. Hey, so a couple of things with that. One, really impressive that that y'all saw an opportunity at what was a very dire time in the market. You seized it. You continue to grow a business that's really a super impressive business. When I go to zonings now, and I was at a zoning meeting last night. I was at one last week. I think I've got them every week for the next 6 or 8 weeks. And every one of them has a zoning restriction. I mean, a rental restriction. And that rental restriction is around 5% is what they're enforcing. So for the audience that doesn't know, the rental restriction, when they zone approve one of our neighborhoods, they'll say if it's a 100-lot neighborhood, if it's a 5% rental restriction, they'll say that no more than 5% of the people live there, 5 lots, could be rented out, and that is supposedly going to be enforced by the HOA. And for me to get any zoning approved right now, I have to agree to a rental restriction. When did that come into play for you? Because it's only been an issue for us. We've been continually building a pipeline of opportunities to develop and build for years, and I think it's been about 5 years now that these rental restrictions. What do you think about that? When did it come into play, and what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so Cobb County has been doing it for some time, probably 15 years. Um, and Gwinnett picked it up about 5 years ago. Henry probably 3 or 4 years ago, and we're trying to fight that. I don't think it's legal, to be honest. I don't think it's constitutional. Um, we have actually pushed to have a couple of bills introduced at the state level to limit this activity. Um, for your listeners, imagine owning a home and being in a situation where your job moves you to Florida, let's say, but you don't want to leave your neighborhood. I did this, by the way. So I moved to Arizona. I kept my house here and I leased it out to a very nice family for 2 years. And then we moved back right back into our life. And that was important. That was an important thing for me to do and for my family to be able to do, that essentially they're taking that away. And I don't think that's a legal taking, and I don't think it's appropriate either. People have misconceptions about rental, and some of them are justified, right? Like, you don't want a house in the neighborhood with grass that's 3 feet tall.
Right.
I understand that. You don't want, renters coming in that are not going to be a part of your community, you know, having parties every night, whatever. And you don't want to, necessarily turn your neighborhood into a mobile home park,
Right.
right? All of those things are founded in sort of 1960s, 1970s thinking. And I would say that has less to do with the renter and more to do with the rules of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
If, yes, we should all agree that grass has to be cut. You can't have crazy parties, that
Who manages that for ResiBuilt?
we do it internally. Yeah. So all of our communities have not only covenants in the neighborhood that have that, but we also have that in their leases. So if we have somebody that is habitually a problem, we can evict them, right? That's better than having a bad neighbor, right?
Sure.
And to be honest, when you drive into a community that maybe you built 5 or 10 years ago, you're going to see some yards that have tall grass from owned homes.
Who manages the lawns in the homes you rent?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe in uniform maintenance. So we manage everything. So we do all the lawns in the front and the back. We do all the maintenance on, the exterior and interior of the house. And the way I see it, each of these communities is a, 40 to $60 million investment. And I manage it that way. Um, we don't want that to go backwards. We don't
Right.
want the values to drop when we're investing that much money. Whereas, if John the home buyer down the street, has a rough week at work, he's not going to get out there and cut the grass.
Right. But your
So,
crew is going to do it.
oh yeah,
When you do an entire neighborhood, and you talked about potentially selling it to an end user, not just another institutional buyer. Have you had situations where you decided to do just that, and you started? Do you, if you have an entire neighborhood, do you only market that to institutional buyers, or will you sell it to individuals?
we tend to we keep all of our dedicated rental communities 100% rental.
Okay.
And the only reason for that is long-term financing products that are available.
Mhm.
I actually believe that in the next few years there are going to be additional financing products that are created, and hopefully one of your listeners is the light bulb that goes off.
Yeah.
But I really believe that housing should be offered the same way that a car does. Going back to the car analogy here. What does it matter, right? So if you want to do, a 3-year home lease with a residual amount at the end, great. You can go this direction, or you can buy it with, traditional mortgage.
So that would be a
products and go
different
this
model
direction.
for you. That would be a lease to own model,
Correct.
which is just as different than what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
So back to the lease rental caps. Is it possible for you just to simply call it owner financing, and then it's completely undone?
It's a possibility. The reality is these communities take a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we use institutional capital.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really Wall Street capital, but that's what people kind of refer to. Oh, Wall Street capital. That just means somebody has a lot of money.
Right.
It's again another great headline that doesn't really mean what it says. But if somebody's going to invest $60 million in a project, they don't want a whole lot of question marks. They don't want to get into a lawsuit and fight.
Okay. So because you've already got a owner finance, and somebody thinks they're buying the home, and they feel like they've been misled, and it's going to cause a problem on one sale within a 200 lot neighborhood.
Right.
Okay, I understand. So one thing you mentioned is that when yours come to market, you're coming in, your absorption rate's 10 to 15 a month. One of my pitches when I go and I zone neighborhoods is that if it's successful, I'm only going to impact you by 3 a month. So there's that, which gives some peace of mind to the municipalities in that that our for sale product is not going to have the immediate impact on their roads and schools that they're forecasting anyway. They're always afraid, and there's really not based in reality ever, but it is the fear, and we can kind of assuage that by saying our absorption rate is going to be 4 or 5 a month. This 200 lot neighborhood you're approving is going to won't be fully built out for 7 years. You, on the other hand, are saying it's going to be fully occupied within 36 months.
Mm-hmm.
Is that anything you've ever had to overcome?
My statement to that is the fees, the building permit and impact fees, and the offsites that we're required to do also come faster
And in bigger batches.
and in bigger numbers, right?
Mhm.
So, look, people have been complaining about growth and roads and schools for 30 years, and nobody has solved it yet. Like, that is a government problem,
Right.
and it is not a solution to build slower and reduce the income of the government to solve the problem. Like, what we would need to be doing as voters is demanding that the roads be widened and that schools, get properly funded. That's a different question to me.
Yeah,
So,
and I agree with you. And when we do a lot of research before we make a zoning application, virtually every school district we're uh, attempting to get a zoning approved has a declining enrollment,
yeah,
and our birth rates are going down as
that's
well.
right.
And so those aren't good things. Um, all right.
One more before we go off
Mhm.
this topic. I think it is kind of unique and surprising. So, if you look at the average, or let's just say the cohorts of groups that rent in our neighborhoods, when we started this, we thought it was going to be 98% millennials, right? Young families just starting to take off. And here's the reality, they're about 40%.
Hmm.
That's shockingly low. The other 40% are relatively young empty nesters. So they've put their kids through school and now they don't necessarily want to mow the yard anymore. They want to sell at the peak, right? So that they'll sell their house now and rent, and then get the lock and leave lifestyle and travel more, and they're 50, they're 60, maybe 65. They don't want to move into a 55 and older community because 55 and older is not what it used to be.
No,
Right.
I'm over that, and one thing, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Um, so we we are you're selling the homes on the scattered lots primarily, and so what is the average time that you guys own a home before it's an entire neighborhood going to a buyer, or it's just the scattered lots going to
Yeah.
individuals?
So to clarify, so we only did the scattered lots, the first 300, just
Mhm.
to get the building company rolling. Um, we do have for sale communities now that are just 100%, traditional for sale home building. But we prefer to do build to rent.
Why do you do the for sale? Is it because of the limitations on the availability of rent
That's correct.
caps?
Yep.
And you got a business to run, you need to work around it.
Yep. We have to keep the machine fed.
Right. So what are the qualifications for a renter?
Ooh, great question. So, minimum 3 times, income to rent. So, our average, that's the minimum. We're typically a
Can you
point and a
put
half.
that in and just lay it
Yeah,
out? You got
use numbers.
you got a
Yeah.
$3,000 a month rent, whatever the rent is.
Yeah, so let's say $2,500 a month in rent. You need to show at least $7,500 a month in annual income. I'm
Gross
sorry, in monthly
and gross.
gross income.
Okay.
That's correct.
So that's an 80 that's a $90,000 household income.
Yep.
And that's very significant. Okay. So you've got a person with $90,000 household income.
Our average income is 120.
Okay. And what's the average price home?
Generally speaking, if we were to sell them on the market, it's high threes to mid fives.
Okay. Significant, nice new homes, $100,000 income. And what else is the process on qualifying for one of your homes?
So we do credit check just like you would do for a mortgage, but in addition to that, we do criminal background. So we scan for sex offenders and things like that. So just not allowed.
Things I can't do when I sell a house.
Correct.
Okay.
And then it's a 1 month down payment, and then they can move in. So the entire process can be done in 24 hours.
What's the shortest term and longest term of your leases?
1 year, all of them,
And
generally speaking.
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do a 13 or a 14-month lease just to smooth out our renewal processes on occasion. But generally, it's 1 year. We won't go less than 1 year. We're not short-term rentals. That's totally different. But yeah, we're long-term rental, but it's 1 year at a time.
So at one point, I've been doing land acquisition, development, and zoning for years and years, and I think it was about 3 years ago that the phone stopped ringing from institutional buyers. But before that, I was fielding calls all the time. Was it just the fact that interest rates went up that slowed that market at that point, or was it the fact that they didn't need me anymore, that they were doing what you're doing and you're developing your own?
It was mainly interest rates, right? So what people were doing, and I still get some of those calls. Maybe I'm on a different list, and I've heard people complain about that. Like, I can't believe that an institution would call me and try to buy my home. Wow, like that's the odd thing to be complaining about, right? Like, I don't have to sell it,
Right.
but people can call me all they want. Like, I'm just going to say no. I've no desire to sell my home, and that's fine. Nobody's going to make you. Um, in fact, I actually saw something on the news last night, a big expose about, a community in Atlanta where people were being quote unquote forced out because institutional landlords were coming in and buying the homes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if forced out means they were accepting cash and selling the home, I think they're gladly taking that, right?
Okay.
That's just called, a buy and sell market. There's no force in this. The institutions aren't forcing anybody to do anything. Um, are they coming in and buying homes in certain areas? Yes, and they're renovating the homes and doing high level property management. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. That's just giving people options to live in certain neighborhoods. But our culture has gotten to where it's sort of this us versus them mentality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that can be used in a lot of different ways, like us as an owner versus them as a renter. Obviously, us and them is used in race. We don't, we don't like it, but it is, and used in politics all the time. Um, us and them versus, are used in municipal zonings, right? Like, well, yes, we need affordable housing, but not in our clique.
Right.
What?
NIMBY.
Yeah, it's an NIMBYism. Like, it needs to be the next town over. They can do that.
Right.
Us and them. And we've got to figure out how to get away from this stuff, because the ultimate problem in our housing industry is very simple. There's just not enough of it.
Well, and what they allow us to build, people can't afford.
Yes.
So, what has caused the stigma? Because I don't read good things about institutional buyers. I know what I think the problem is. I'm curious what you think it is.
Yeah, I think that I have to admit, right, there are some news stories out there of an air conditioning breaking and the property management company not replacing it in the same day, or maybe it's a week. And that's, same day shouldn't be expected. A week,
Yeah.
yeah, you should do better than that. But on the other hand, it's hard. And if you're a homeowner, would that homeowner have had the cash to replace it in a week? I don't know.
Right.
And so it's easy to pick up like these types of stories and then paint the entire industry with a broad brush. And nobody's doing that with homeowners because there's no advantage to it, right? You're not going to go to,
Well, the
John
homeowner,
Few homeowner and be like, you're not cutting your grass. And that's not a story on.
well, the
on,
homeowner is not a
news.
nameless, faceless entity that is sitting on Wall Street that they can throw rocks at, right?
That's right.
So, what I think it is too is I see these angry messages on Instagram, and someone shared one from TikTok, and it's people who are learning what their mortgage payment's going to be, and also learning that they don't qualify. As I saw one, it was a nurse, and she had a 700 credit score, had some money, but she still couldn't qualify, and what she could qualify for was not available. The municipality doesn't let people like me build 1,000 square foot home. So, and I think that the easy thing to do is to blame you,
Absolutely.
because people like Jay Byce with ResiBuilt Homes is you're removing homes from the market that this nurse would have otherwise been able to buy. But what you said was your homes are $300,000 to $400,000, it wouldn't matter if they were set there vacant. She still, in this environment, was not going to be able to buy that home. So,
Let me answer that. So, first of all, we're adding homes to the supply, not subtracting. And even the large institutions that own sort of scattered rental homes, they're not subtracting from the market either. If you look at how many homes that they own today versus how many homes they owned in 2018, it's about the same.
okay.
So they're not sucking up the supply. And the increase in cost of owning the home, obviously you have interest rates, but let's ignore that just for a second. We had, 20 to 30% inflation in building
Sure.
the home, right? So, yes, that gets passed on. If you look at Atlanta versus, let's say, Newark, New Jersey, and you say, well, the rental institutions are simply not in New Jersey because their rental laws are so bad. Well, side note, it takes about 2 years to evict someone in New Jersey, so you can just live free. So none of the institutions go there. The increases in housing prices are similar Atlanta to Newark, New Jersey, where SFR, single family rental homes just aren't. So we're not the ones causing any sort of a pricing push. We're just simply giving people options. We're giving the nurse an option to live in a home near where she works and not have to qualify for the mortgage.
I would differ a little bit on that, and it's not because you're not adding subdivisions, because you're developing, right?
Yep.
And building, and so you're not taking that away. The problem with it is that and we're working right now. We're talking to everyone from Metro Atlanta. It's a big housing market, one of the fastest growing markets in the United States for 45 years.
Top 5.
Yeah. So, but we were able to plat, and we need to plat 35,000 lots a year because of the foot dragging and restrictions at the municipal level. There is a scarcity in lots, and they're going to allow us to plat about 15,000 in the next 12 months. So we're a market that needs 35,000 lots for sale. That you mentioned once needed 75,000 lots. Well, just through organic growth, all the high school graduations we go to, all the household formation, not including all the industry they're trying to recruit here all the time, we need 36,000 lots a year. The municipalities will only allow us to build in this next 12 months about 15,000 lots.
Yep.
That means you and I are competing for lots. And so, and what I think the people are afraid of is that out of those 15,000 lots, there's 35,000 would-be home buyers that, because of that scarcity, have to be renters, not necessarily by choice. So, and to some degree that has to be true because they have to live somewhere. So my biggest frustration isn't that you're taking lots away from me, and it's not that you're taking zone land away from me. My biggest frustration is there's any limitation to it at all.
I agree. Yeah.
In Houston, and it may be Texas as a whole, recently passed an ordinance that they can require no lot to be larger than 3,000 square feet. You and I have the freedom to build 2, 5, 10-acre lots if we choose to, but they cannot require it to be over 3,000 square feet. And I think that's been translated over into house size. And then I was on the phone this morning with our head of HBAG, who told me in Calhoun last night, although their minimum square footage requirement was 1,150 square feet, someone wanted to build a 500 square foot tiny home neighborhood, and a judge ruled in his favor and said by edict they had to. So things are changing.
Yeah. I think if you, and I've done a lot of research on this. So in Georgia, and just speaking specifically on Georgia here, um, our Constitution has what's called home rule for municipalities to handle their zoning. Now, what does that mean? What does home rule mean? Because it's referred to a lot around here. What home rule is defined as is the municipality, whether it's county or city, has the ability to legislate how they desire, as long as the state hasn't already done it. So anything that the state doesn't legislate, then the county can. Then you look at, okay, I understand what home rule is, but what is zoning? What is the definition of zoning? So if you look at the definition of zoning, also in the Constitution, it is supposed to be limited to health, safety, and well-being.
So, so for everyone that's listening, health would be public services, water and sewer,
Mm-hmm.
maybe electricity, maybe utilities. Safety would be streets, maybe, but primarily emergency services like police, fire, that type thing. And well-being is kind of nebulous.
That is a little bit nebulous. I can see a separation of like industrial to residential for health and safety reasons. I can see limitations on, we generally have a rule that you need 2 entrances for a community over 200 lots?
International Fire Code and Georgia Fire Code is 120.
120.
I had to kill a deal because the local municipality was enforcing that at 25 lots.
Right. So like things like that
Mhm.
are going way above safety standards. And then you get into all the architectural requirements that municipalities are doing. Oh, I want 4 sides brick. I mean, you know how expensive this. That's really expensive.
Right.
And
And adds no appreciable value.
it has no value. Or the latest thing, I had a municipality want only crawl spaces.
Mhm.
We have to build on crawl spaces. That's unusual in Atlanta. So because it's unusual, it costs a lot to
Oh, it's
build on the
super
crawl
expensive.
spaces. And so, it's things like these that are intentionally driving the cost up of the final homes, right?
When you say intentionally, what would be the intent?
There's 2 reasons. One is they want higher home values for property tax revenue, right? And number 2 is an us versus them thing. Look, we can talk about affordable housing all we want, but if you're in a wealthy area, then you don't want them coming in.
Hmm.
End of story. And so that's why we need some legislation at the state or federal. I think this can be federal, and I'm hopeful that HUD can come up with some creative solutions on this issue, because it's hurting the everyday person in so many different ways, and there's just no way to change it at the local level. Like if someone comes in and is relatively open to these ideas, number one, they don't have enough votes on their local commission. And number 2, there's probably going to be a big movement of voters right behind him to say he's pro-growth.
That's why it needs to be taken away.
Right. It's got to be taken away.
Yeah. So I think, and you and I work for a couple of advocacy groups that are trying to affect some positive change for affordability's sake. And I don't know if the decision makers fully understand what's happening, because I love Georgia. You're from Georgia. I'm
Absolutely.
from Georgia. I was born in Atlanta. I've lived within 20 miles of where I was born my entire life. And if you see a loved one that was heading over the cliff, you would do everything you could to save them from getting over that cliff. The problem we have in Georgia, and then we do work in Alabama, you do work all over the nation, is that we're not approaching the cliff. We're bashed on the rocks. We're now trying to. This is a rescue mission, and so you and I, our industry, our pieces of the industry are pitted against each other on this whole competition thing. And I would contend, I think it sounds like you would agree to a degree, that it's based on a scarcity that the municipalities have caused. So they create scarcity, then they complain about the lack of homes for sale because you're using all of them to rent. And then what they do approve out of those 15,000, you mentioned architectural restrictions, the 15,000 lots they do approve, one reason it's not more than that is they come with such heavy architectural restrictions that's all our industry is willing to put on the market, because where 70% of Georgians can afford or qualify for a home that's on the market, there are a lot of $500,000 houses on the market. They keep calling it the missing middle, as if they care about it. And we did an exercise in here for another podcast. We learned that the average cop can afford to buy a 960 square foot home. Now, we have a nice 960,000 square foot house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. I was raised in an 1,100 square foot home near Conley, Georgia. My mother stayed at home, as did my dad. Was a blue collar worker. 25 homes on the street. Moms all stayed home, and somehow we survived small houses, or what we would consider small houses in today's terms. So I want to lay out a scenario for you and just let you pick holes in it, and let's see where it goes. So what I would contend is, I think you were mentioning the Constitution. I think the municipalities are stepping all over right to assembly, freedom of expression, my freedom of expression, the buyer's freedom of assembly, and I think there's other things there. And certainly pursuit of happiness, private property rights don't mean anything.
Yep.
And as soon as anyone watching this, you don't have to be in the industry. If you've ever had to ask permission from your HOA to do a lot, or ask permission from your municipality to cut down a tree, then you can understand the limitations on private property rights, and they're extraordinary. So if there were no limitations on lot size, no limitation on house size, then and density, we would be able to fill this void pretty quickly. And so this is what I think, if you could extrapolate, what would happen is you would let people like me would go out and we would put a lot of product on the ground. We would put a lot of homes on the ground that people could afford. Our MO, we went in business 47 years ago. You go to Walmart, there's 40 cashiers, there's one store manager. We're building houses the cashiers can afford. Henry Ford built cars that everybody on the assembly line could buy. That was part of his logic, or his method of doing business, and that's what we kind of buy into. So you would have all those on the market. Everyone who wanted a house could buy one because there wouldn't be any scarcity. You could develop and build everything that the rental market needs. And in your experiment showed that 92% of the people that called you didn't, even though they could have bought, they chose to rent. And then I think something that no one outside of maybe this room is thinking about is apartment rents are extraordinarily high. It's crazy high. And one reason they can be so high is there's not many houses to buy. There's really not that many houses to rent, and people have to live somewhere.
That's right.
So if we go to the end of this scenario, I've got all the houses on the market. ASP, average sales price, comes down in Atlanta because now 70% of the buyers can afford. There'll be houses on the market that are $225,000.
Right.
You have all the houses that people want to rent because we have a huge transient. There'll always be people who don't want to settle in Atlanta but need to live in Atlanta.
Yep.
And then my contention is you and I are no longer competing for lots and land, but the apartment developer, apartment owner, he's competing with you for renters.
Absolutely.
And so now he's got to make his rent so low to keep someone from wanting to rent your house.
That's correct.
So who loses in that scenario?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that would be great for the city. Obviously, great for the consumer. The question is how you get there, right? The reality is somebody has to have the gumption to stand up, and it needs to be a politician. Unfortunately, the people that are standing up for headlines rather than real solutions. I'm sure you saw, our senator, John Ossoff, is quote unquote attacking the lack of affordable housing and thereby attacking, uh, institutional money. That makes no sense.
Right.
It's a great headline, right?
Mhm.
Oh, it's Ossoff versus Wall Street.
The hedge fund.
Yeah, or the hedge funds.
Yeah.
And that's he's just trying you know, to get people ginned up when the real solution is build more houses. You subtract us, we're not building more houses.
Right.
We're building less houses. Oh, and by the way, who are the home builders owned by?
Well, there's
Most of them are public.
right now 70% of the homes. I think it's 70%.
Yeah, high
I'd be
60s.
be wrong. Are homes in Atlanta are being built by publicly traded
Publicly
builders.
traded. Oh, wait, Wall Street?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's still Wall Street.
Mhm.
So, we have to figure out how to educate people that these headlines are nothing more than headlines. And we've done studies and we've provided, the politician studies, but ultimately we need a politician, that has the gumption to say that this is, capitalism is the solution, not limitation.
On the flip side of that, if you go to New York, you've got a very charismatic young guy who's talking about affordability,
Hmm.
and he's right. Groceries are too expensive. And he's talking about housing costs, and he's right.
Yeah.
And he's talking to an educated group of young people who now are desperate because they can't feed themselves hardly and they can't move out of their mom and dad's house. And that message of socialism is really appealing. And so, because we're dabbling with government control already to the degree that we are, what they're going to do is hand over more control
That's right.
to the same entity that's causing every bit of this problem.
Look at New York.
That's it. That's
You've got rent control already,
Mm.
and they're complaining about affordability.
right.
Well, that doesn't make sense. Like you've complained, you proposed your solution, and it got worse. You know why? Because you're using socialist tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if New York had said, the real solution is we got to build more, this problem would be in the rearview mirror, right? We got to figure out how to convert more office building to apartments, take away the regulations to get that done. That solves that helps the problem in New York, not more rent control and look, the grocery thing has been tried before too.
Yeah.
Go find a place that it's worked. All of these things sound good in sound bites, but in practice that it doesn't work.
Mm.
And that's like the whole thing with socialism, right? Like it sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Like
Oh, yeah.
what if we could all be happy and not be arguing with each other and all get everything that we want all the time, and that would be our lives. Okay, yeah, that would be great. I would sign up for that. Problem is that's not what happens.
Yeah.
And so the guy in New York, I think is going to be a benefit for Florida. I mean, he's probably going to win. He's only one guy. The mayor can't do a lot of the crazy things that he's talking about, and I don't think the city council is going to go for it. But he will spur more people to leave the city, and that is one way to make it more affordable. You have
Yeah.
everyone leave.
Oversupply.
Yeah.
One thing. So I'm a small government guy. I'm an entrepreneur, and for this period of time, I'm very conservative politically. But where I've been so disappointed is no matter what municipality I work in, it could be controlled by people who call themselves conservatives, and it could be controlled by people who call themselves liberals. The objections are always the same.
Mhm.
So that is really difficult to overcome when you don't have any ally with people who understand or care about private property rights. It seems like it so obviously only comes down to that. We're nibbling around the edges in our organizations, and you're working with home builders closely. We have the development council, and you're with us on development council as well. And when we know what the problem is, it's like you have a tumor in your hand and you keep amputating your fingers one at a time, when maybe the idea would be to just go ahead and let's just take that tumor out.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about.
But before we get off that,
Yeah.
the crux of the problem with the politician groups that we have right now at the local level, they are more apt to listen to the noisy neighbor, whether backed by fact or not. And then when you get to the state level, I hate to say it, probably even the mayor, and city council level, they just want to be reelected.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is standing up especially for private property rights. That takes an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's willing to take the time to say, no, look, this is what we're founded on. These are the important principles. Maybe that's what the word I'm looking for is. Nobody's principled enough to say, I'm shutting this down. I'm shutting this conversation down because I'm principled.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hopeful that in the governor's race, that someone emerges for the state of Georgia that is principled. I do a lot in Florida. DeSantis, love him or hate him, he's very principled, and he
On their
tells
zoning
people.
side, I think they said you could do any type of affordable home up through an industrial zoning. So if a piece of property
Yes,
was
it's
zoned
called the Live
industrial,
Local Act.
you didn't have to go through a long zoning process. And what I don't think they understand is the time involved. So
Yes.
your experience as a banker, we hear the terms in the industry all the time where I'm trying to sell a deal or buy a deal, whatever. That deal doesn't pencil. It has too much money exposed for too long a period of time. And so not only do they limit us in their zoning, the way they zone property, but their processes and the time involved. Jay, when we went into business, we could get a zoning wrapped up in 75 days.
Yeah.
And then the permit, we could probably apply for the permit within 90 days. No, within 45 days after zoning. And then within 90 days, we'd have a permit. Probably 60 days, we'd have a permit. 6 more months, we're going vertical with homes. Now we budget a year for the zoning. We budget a year for the permit. It's a year to put it on the ground, 6 more months to get anything vertical. So if you and I start negotiating a deal for your farm today, it's going to be 42 months before we have
3.5 years.
Yeah, anything on the ground.
Think about it this way. So in 2005, we were putting 75,000 lots on the ground. Think about all of the advances that we have had in productivity between 2005 and 2025. And a municipality is going to tell me that they can't get it done any faster?
Yeah, everything else is faster.
Everything else is faster.
Mm-hmm.
But everything in the system that you just described is taking 3, maybe 4 times longer and costing an astronomical amount more than it did in 2005.
And so that consequently, in a market that needs more inventory, the guys running these financial models for companies like yours and companies like mine will look at it and say, why don't you just go buy a CD for drawing 4%?
That's right.
Because it has no risk, and you're not going to get much of a return when this is all said and done.
So profits. Let's touch on that for a second.
You're not allowed to say the P word in here, man.
I'm going to say the P word, profits. So the insinuation when people attack institutional investors is that somehow they're scamming people, right? Or they're grossly profiting, exorbitant amounts on average consumers. Nobody talks about what the real profits are. So let me throw that out at you. So the 2 largest publicly traded companies in the single family rental space, American Homes for Rent and Invitation Homes, on average, they make 6% per year on their homes. So let that sink in. They make 6% per year. That's less than the cost of a mortgage. Your mortgage is 7.5%, right? So what those two groups are making as profit is less than what you pay for your mortgage.
And the risk is extraordinary.
Yes. And not to mention all the people that they employ, all the good that they do outside of that, which a loan doesn't do, right? A loan creates no jobs, right? It's just a piece of paper. So 6%. Let's talk about home builders, right?
We try to get away with 5.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, we have a
Net
30%. Well, we actually probably run about a 25% gross margin, 11% overhead, and 10% cost of sale.
Yep.
And we're actually, that leaves us 4%.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for.
It's between,
with that,
5 and 10.
and then we have to reinvest every bit of it back in the business. On top of that, on that 5%, let's say it's 5%, we're going to pay we're an S corp, so we're paying 30% of that in taxes.
Doesn't seem egregious, does it?
No, right.
It doesn't seem like we should be getting attacked
No.
the way that we are. But again, there's just nobody that, in the political realm that has the backbone or the gumption to stand up and say, okay, this is absurd. Like, these companies employ a bunch of people and they make, they're not ripping anybody off. And it's good for the overall housing market. Yes, you and I compete for land, but as you said, that's really created by the municipal restrictions. We shouldn't be competing on land because the pie itself should be larger. We shouldn't be arguing over how big our slice is. And I think that's what we have to figure out is how do we get the word out and how do we find the right leaders for the state. I think Kemp has done a great job, like specific to Georgia. And I think DeSantis is doing a great job. But, we have to start looking forward. Like, so for Georgia, Kemp has done a great job attracting new employers. So the new jobs that are coming to the state are massive. We're not going to have enough housing for them.
We need to start wrapping it up a little bit. So I think that one thing occurs to me. One, it's really good talking to you.
Likewise.
It's been really educational. Thank you. I think we would both agree that this is a problem that could be solved simply by the municipalities relaxing and let the market dictate. Let us put the product on the market on the ground that we need to. Because we can stray, if we have this conversation, it becomes very philosophical, but it's actually, the answer is pretty simple. No restrictions on lot size, no restrictions on house size, no restrictions on
Architectural
density and architectural requirements, and you would not believe the creativity you would see in the market. Before we close, just let me give you the chance to close with whatever you would like to say about the industry. Anything, and we'll wrap it up.
Sure. I just want to say thank you so much for the time. It's great having this conversation. I think more conversations like this will lead us to an answer. I think my industry, build to rent, I believe is a very important piece of the overall housing equation. And it is such a small, like almost tiny, minuscule part of the entire market. The fact that people are coming after us as if we're doing something that is like moving the entire market needs to be met with like a lot of skepticism. Right? It's absurd what a lot of these politicians are keying on. And I would just encourage, for all of your listeners, talk to other people about this, like in a wise way, right? The problem is not that builders are making too much money. The problem is not that home prices are too high, because we can't lower them. Like there's
Right.
just nothing left to lower them. The problem is there's just not enough of them,
That's right.
and the only way to build that is somehow to get some legislation passed that will open the spigot.
Good stuff, Jay. Thank you again for coming here. Everyone, thank you for joining us today on Build Baby Build, and we look forward to seeing you next time.